How's it going, everybody? My name is Coda, and welcome back to another episode in my survival world. Now, if you were here for last episode, you might remember this library that we built, and my promise to create an iron farm in today's episode. And well, if the thumbnail and the video title didn't spoil it for you now, I will. Today, we're going to be putting an iron farm right here. But now, of course, I can't just straight up create an iron farm. Of course not. I have no plan and no idea whatsoever what I want to do. I do know that I think it is getting nighttime. Anyway, I do know that I want to use mud because we haven't actually used mud in any of our builds. And I'm not talking like the packed mud that we used over here. I'm talking about the dirty, gray, muddy actual mud that we used to make packed mud. This kind of mud. And if we have enough time in today's episode, I'll tackle terraforming around this building. I promise. Or we'll find something else to distract ourselves with. And speaking of distractions, I did build my PC like I mentioned last episode, and this video is being recorded on it. So if you guys notice any like quality differences, or if it is better quality, please let me know. I'd love to know, or if it's not better, figure out how to make it better for you guys. So yeah, any feedback you guys have, it would be greatly appreciated. Now, my absolute favorite way to get mud is this little very simple method you see right in front of you. You see, this is very beginner friendly, and if you don't have a lot of resources, this is just perfect for you. But all you have to do is place your dirt one block underneath the water surface and just get one water bottle. Or empty bottle, it doesn't really matter because you're going to fill it with water anyway. Now all you have to do is fill your water bottle with water and then turn your dirt into mud. And you just walk through and you do this. And it's the simplest way you can create mud. It's especially useful if you're in a hurry and don't feel like making an entire mud machine. And easy enough, we got 4 stacks of mud. Plus the 3.5-ish that we had in our shulker box. Might be enough. Okay, I did lie a little bit. I did think about a block palette that I wanted to use. And it looks a little something like this. Which, these two layers might get switched actually. That's a little better. But this is the sort of gradient that I want to go for. And then in terms of shaping, I wanted to do a little like, you know, and then, and I have no idea. But I do have some inspiration pictures, so it's a start, I guess? Nope, okay, that's what it's gonna look like. Now for the outline. And now that we have the outline finished, I'm going to walk you guys through what my process was. So initially I was thinking of having a lot more of a slope to the roof, but then a lot of the inspiration pictures I was looking at had a lot of flat roofs, and it honestly turned out really good for them. So I figured I'd try and incorporate it into this build and still keep sort of a slant in the middle here. Now with these two sides, we have a lot of opportunity to put some big old windows here, which is something that I really wanted to incorporate as well. But the sides here, we have a lot of room for experimentation. And I might play around with some like spray painting or some murals like we did in the library, something fun on the sides to just add in a little bit of world building that isn't just a flat wall. But we'll kind of play around with that and try and experiment some. Now for the front of the factory, I'm not going to have one door. I want either 2 doors, one here and one on this side, or we might do 2 entryways here and then on the other side of this front jut out bit. But I for sure don't want one singular door. I want a little bit of uniqueness to this build. And I took a step back and looked at it from a distance, and I think it looks a little bit tall right now on the hill, but the shaping and the way that it looks will give us a lot of room for detailing and making the build look how I want it to in my brain. So we're just going to have to deal with the tallness, and once we start filling in this area with buildings, I'm sure it won't look as tall. And we could also increase the foundation, make that a couple blocks taller, and that'll help bring the build itself down just a little bit. And visually, it would also add a lot more structure to our perception of the build and make it feel like this gigantic iron factory isn't just sitting on a meter high small foundation. But for not actually having a plan in the beginning, this outline came out very well, and I'm very pleased with it. And it only took me like 20 minutes, so that's a win. So I actually brought the foundation up by 1 block, and I think it does a good job of grounding this build a lot more and feeling like it has a lot stronger of a foundation. Now the only thing we have left to do is fill in the walls, and I'm probably going to fill them in first and then work on punching out some windows and adding in a lot of those details that we love. Now I'm going to walk you guys through a little bit of my thought process as I was going through this wall. So first I started off with a layer of bricks, and then I added something that I'm calling the bleed through technique, and that's adding this granite only on top of where the bricks touch the jungle planks right there. I don't see many people talking about this technique, so that's why I don't really know what it's called, and I'm just calling it the bleed through. But basically it just acts as a border between the two textures and colors and all that, and kind of increases that gradient that we're trying to get in this area. And you'll see that I only incorporated that in between the bricks and the granite because the transition between the stripped jungle wood and the jungle planks is a lot better. And you'll also notice at the very top I did incorporate some dripstone into the palette because I thought it blended in very nicely. And then at the top it also provides a nice little shadow that the roof will kind of give off and kind of creates a lot more of a weathered effect in some of the areas. And you can see I also incorporated it in some of the lower bits. And now you also see the spot texturing where I took some of the top textures and kind of blended them down into this area, but I also flipped their orientation. So like the strip jungle's on top here and then the jungle planks. Well, the jungle planks are on bottom and then the jungle planks are on top and then the jungle stripped wood is on the bottom of it. And I only did it in this lower section because if I added more red to the top, I feel like it wouldn't look quite right. In the bottom, it looks okay. It provides a little bit of a light texture, but if you added it to the lighter area and made it darker, I don't think it would have the same effect as it does down here. And then at the very top layer, wherever I had the dripstone, I tried to make it a rule of thumb to just go 3 blocks down, or 2 blocks in some areas, but mostly 3 everywhere, vertically down from where the dripstone is. This gave it a really nice border, and it also increased the amount of jungle wood that we have, which is kind of the main texture that I wanted to work with on this build. And yes, I know it is a wood and it's a factory and there's going to be fire and all that stuff, but this is a video game and I'm going to pretend that it isn't wood and can't burn. And fire tick is off, so joke's on you. Now that you know my process, I'm going to apply it to the rest of these walls, and that first wall took like 20 minutes, so I'll be back in like an hour. Now, as you can see, all 4 sides are complete, and the last thing that we have to do for at least the exterior of this building is the windows and the roof here. And I think the roof is what we're going to tackle next. Now, for the roof, I'm considering incorporating some of the stone that we have laid up there, but probably not to that extent, mostly in this kind of a stair step up. Something that kind of looks like this, but only on the peak there. And then I was thinking around the outside where we have that too tall area, we're going to try and incorporate mostly these stone slabs here. And we'll also probably incorporate some of the regular stone, but not as heavily as you see it right there. Something along the lines of that. Although I think that stone slabs would fit better than the stone stairs right there. So we'll probably change that, but for the most part, this roof pattern is going to continue all the way around, and then we'll work on filling it in. I did end up switching up the roof, but just a little bit. You see, I brought it from a block step down to half a block step down, and I think that looks a lot nicer, and it worked a lot better with the slabs. We didn't have the weird smooth stone on top, regular stone on the bottom type of thing going on. I think this looks a whole lot better. And I also finished all the top of the roof. That's right, we added in a bunch of windows. I don't remember if I'd mentioned those earlier, but that was something I wanted to add onto the roof, was some of these skylight windows. And we also added a pathway around here, not really for any purpose other than kind of realism. In any kind of factory, there's going to be some sort of access to the roof, so that's kind of what this space is here. And you'll notice here, this section was extended all the way down and across the build. The roof used to end right where this railing is, and now it does not. And I think it does a lot of work for the build and makes it feel like it's got a lot more structure going for it. See, we still don't have a doorway, but if we get in here, we have all of this space to work with on the inside now. And I actually did some calculations, and this villager breeder over here, the front of these beds, which is where the village is at block 1928, negative 1928. And if we go all the way over there and we line ourselves up at the center, you see it says negative 1877. That is 51 blocks away from the villager breeder. And that is actually the perfect number and the perfect distance for how far apart the villager breeder needs to be for this iron farm to actually work. And I did not think about it until I was putting the roof on. And I had a slight heart attack because I was like, what if I need to move this entire building? I'd probably just move the villager breeder, but somehow we did it perfectly, and an iron farm will fit just perfectly inside this building. The only issue now is figuring out which iron farm I want to use and how I want to decorate this interior, because we have a lot of space to work with here, and it'll be a little bit of a challenge. And we're not quite done with the exterior yet. We still need to add a lot of details, probably some smokestacks, that mural I was talking about, some spray paint maybe, and a name for the building. I don't have a name yet, but hopefully a name will go plastered on the other side of this wall, and we'll be able to see it from everywhere in the village. And honestly, it might just be something simple like Ironworks or Iron Factory, but a name's a name. Now that I'm thinking about it and actually looking up some of the farms, it might be a good idea if we knocked out the windows and did all the interior stuff before we put the farm in. That way we can make sure everything is spawn proof and nothing hopefully goes wrong when we try and put the farm right in the middle here. So that's what we're going to do. Now, in addition to all these windows that you see I added here, we also created a loading dock at the back of the build here. And as you can see, we added some framing, and this is also present on the front of the build. But this is an element of the structure that I thought was missing with just the flat walls that we had sitting here before. And around where the terrain kind of meets the building, I put in a little retainer wall, and then here it's going to be a crane, because you kind of need a crane to load these big blocks of iron onto the carts and then off to wherever they're going to go. One of the details that I loved about doing this back area was this door here. This is supposed to be like a rolling door, like it starts at the bottom and then rolls itself up onto this tread type thing. And you just have to use your imagination, but I thought it was fun coming up with that and, you know, adding a bit of realism to the build. And then up in this big blank space, I don't know if we're going to put a window in yet. It might just be blank because it is the back of the build, and, you know, in real life, you don't really have very many detailed backs, and with the outlines and whatnot going on and the windows, it does feel pretty detailed. And I'm sure once we get the crane in, it won't feel like we need something here, but it is something we can add at a future date. Now, on the inside here, I did start laying out the interior walls. I believe the brick will stay on this side of the build, and then the weathered and exposed stuff and the detailing that we did on these side walls will stay the way that they are on the interior. And then these end pieces, I don't really know. But up here, we are going to have sort of an administration office, some place where the foremans of the factory will go and, you know, supervise all of the ironwork things that go on in a factory. And as you can see here, I have a potential name for this factory, and because, you know, they're iron golems and you're kind of farming them, I figured the golem works, right? Because you see like the iron works in an iron factory, but you never really see a golem factory, and that's kind of my reasoning behind it. And on top of that, we could also put a pixel art of a golem right there in the front of the build. And oh yeah, the front has outlining too, by the way. But I was thinking right up there, right at the center of this big open space that we have, we're going to have a golem that kind of smirks off to the side. And I think that'll be a great kind of icon piece for this factory. And then you can see also I finished the doorways going up. We do have one on either side. And then on the either side, on the outside, we have these buttresses that are going through, or at least going to go through the build up and support that part of the ceiling up in there. Again, trying to add a lot of realism into this world. That's kind of one of my favorite parts about the builds, is just kind of thinking of the things that you don't really think of when you think of buildings and trying to incorporate them into the builds that I create. And now as the sun is setting, you can see from a little further out and a little down, we have a very good shape. And I think the outline really helped bring the building into like a factory looking mode. And I think the walls do need a little bit of work, but once we put the sign that either says iron or golems maybe on the side, I think it'll help fill it in. And then of course having that icon pixel art will just level up the build in my opinion. And that way we can also use it to market, like I was thinking like corporate sponsorships, like we'll put sponsored by the Golem Works on some of the toolsmiths or the weaponsmiths that we have, and just fun stuff like that, so we can add a little, well, a lot more realism into this world. Now, the next step for this factory is going to be, well, can you guess it and ignore the arrow in my head? That's right, we're going to do terraforming. I'm just kidding, we're doing the inside now. Before we get the farm in place, we do need to do all of the detailing inside this building, and then make sure everything's spawn proof, and hopefully, fingers crossed, when we put a farm in here, nothing goes wrong. But of course, saying that, something is going to go wrong, and it's villagers. I mean, my luck hasn't been the best with villagers, so yeah, that won't really make a difference. Please wish me luck. But no, first I'm getting ahead of myself. Interior. Now, as I was finishing the buttresses, I noticed the skeleton wander through my front door, and I was not expecting a foreman to arrive this early, so like the dark, winged avenger that I am, I swooped down and took care of business. Now, I got to outlining where I wanted the farms to go, and it turns out I could fit 2 of them in this building, and I was very ecstatic about that. And then I went to moving on to finishing the floors, and of course I changed it a few times, but I went to gather some resources, came back, switched it, found something that I kind of liked, and then I decided to start adding some of the details around. This is a good start, but we're missing a lot of iron. I am literally out of iron, and I'm not going to smelt any of the raw iron that I have. At this point, it's part of my resolve. I'm not going to do it. I refuse to smelt any of it. So the next step is to get some iron, and either I go caving or I just build these farms and then use some of that iron to finish the detailing bits that we need to finish in this area to call this build complete. And to prevent this episode from coming out any later, I'm just going to build these farms, and then we're going to finish the details after that. And fingers crossed nothing goes wrong. I'm going to throw in a little pro tip for you guys. If you ever want to make a build for your iron farm, please, please, please build the farm first and then the building around it. I made so many mistakes because I tried to put this farms inside of a building. Just take my advice, build the farm first, then build the building, and make sure everything is spawn proof. And thank me later. Ladies and gentlemen, I have finished the interior for the most part, actually. It is not 100% complete, as you can see by that guy standing up there on top of the villagers. Now, it is not a very efficient iron golem farm if both the iron golems aren't actually being farmed. So the last step that we have to do in this factory, aside from showing you guys around and some of the stuff that I made, is to actually create the killing chambers and a way to get the drops from up there to down here somewhere. And I've got a pretty creative idea for that, and I hope you guys enjoy what I think I'm gonna do. But it will be a little bit of a challenge trying to fit them into this small space, so we'll just try and work with it and see how it goes. But I was gonna show you everything inside the build before I went and stuck a bunch of pipes everywhere and kind of blocked the lines of sight. So starting off here on the main factory floor, once you first come in, obviously this won't be here, but we have, I mean, the factory. It's kind of a one-room place. It's hard to, walk around. I will walk you through the different stations that I have set up here. So here is kind of like the beginning of the factory where all the molten vats of lava are being poured into it. And it's not lava, it's molten iron is what is being poured out here. So just ignore the fact that it looks a lot like lava. But here, once it is finished cooling, it gets picked up and then brought along these conveyor belts to this area where, I know raw iron isn't quite iron, but raw iron is what comes out here. And then they take it and they shape it down into smaller blocks and they cart it over to here where it gets stored or, whittled down even more and then sharpened or polished and made to look like the iron that you know. And that's what these little grindstones are for. They're here to cut down the iron and then put them into these little ingots. Now, once we do get a lot more iron blocks, I will throw like iron ingots pretty much everywhere across the floor, but there will be some iron blocks over here to kind of mesh with where the raw iron is now, and we'll add some more over to the tables and up there. But this is another station where they cut them down, and then after they get cut down, you come over here, there's some tools and stuff. You come over here, you bring them up here, and you shape them up here. We need to throw down maybe some hammers where people will stand and like beat it down and basically just shape all the iron. And then once it's shaped, it can go back down to the cooling racks or up to these cooling racks here. And then basically it just gets put on these containers, and then the containers will get shipped out in the back here, which is not finished. But eventually there will be the crane here picking this stuff up and putting that on the carts that will go off into nowhere yet. Now back inside, I am going to try and connect these two cross-beam pillars that we had going on and were existing in the first place. I just had to cut them out because they were kind of interfering with the farm, but hopefully we'll be able to get those put back in. And then you'll notice this big awkward looking thing. This is a heat exhaust vent, which kind of pulls all the heat from the molten lava and up and out, which it doesn't technically do that yet because we haven't built anything out there yet, but eventually it'll pull all the heat out and up into the building and outside. Now, finally, the last stop is going to be up here, which is the admin office, which is super decorated. But this is just a place where the foremans will come and discuss, all the business dealings or whatnot. They have a nice little outlook, a nice little in look to the inside of the factory, and they can close the door and make it real quiet in here. Ignore the noises from the farm, though. But this area still needs decorated. The outside still needs finished. You can see I put a lot of glow like in here to stop the golems from spawning up here. I'd say for the most part, like percentage wise, we might be 90% done with the detailing, but we still need to fix the farm. And I guess not fix it because it does work as you see, but fix it so that it actually drops us the stuff and, ices the iron golems or, takes them out back, whatever. We don't talk about that part, but they'll just magically appear in ingots in my inventory and then into blocks and then other useful things like hoppers. So I'm going to get to work on that and I will check back in with you guys. Now, unfortunately, during this process, Sean became dead and I had to replace him with Sean 2 Dead Reckoning, which is not a movie, but Edgar Wright, if you're watching Dead Reckoning number 2, easy. You're welcome. Make it, please. Okay, I just finished going AFK, and I want to see. I was AFK for about an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes, so I'm excited to see how much both the farms produced while we were gone. Okay, 5 stacks. Wow, that one produced a lot more than the other one. I wonder why that is. I emptied them both before, so I really don't know why one produced more than the other, but let's turn these into blocks and see how many we got. Okay, over a stack. Roughly a stack and a half of blocks. That's pretty good if I do say so myself. It's a lot more than we had before. So I think with that, we can say that the farms themselves are wrapped up. Aside from like covering up some of the bits here, which these, okay, about a half a stack and 4. Huh. maybe something's wrong with this farm up here. I'll have to look at the time lapse and kind of troubleshoot that one. I guess that one has been running a lot longer than the other one though, so maybe it's alright. But now that the two farms are finished, it's time we start cleaning up a lot of the mess that we have outside and a lot of the mess inside, and maybe even... Oh. Hello. Why are you here? Oh, great. Okay, well, I'll have to figure out the farm still. Now, before we move on here, I wanted to show you some of the small details that I added around here. You can see, obviously, these big pipes. These are the ones that pipe in the iron and drop into these chests that we have sitting very sneakily in the middle of our build. And that meant I did have to adjust these crate containers a little bit and this little pallet here. But that's okay. I think they still look all right. And it gives us a way to store all of our stuff without having a wall of chests somewhere and looking a little ugly. But other than that, nothing else really changed. I added a couple of the iron blocks here that we were kind of missing before because we didn't quite have the resources for them. But all in all, other than like these parts right here and then the foreman office not being detailed, everything about the inside of this build is complete. Now the only thing left to do on this build is a little bit on the exterior, mainly some exhaust ports for that big old thing and a couple of ones just to add a little bit of life to the outside of the build. And of course the Golem Works sign that's going to go plastered on the side of the building and the pixelated golem that I finally got a design down for on the front of the building, which I think you guys are going to like. You know, I think it's done, because I can't for the life of me think of anything else we could add to the build. Not a single detail whatsoever. Feels pretty complete to me. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, be sure to let me know. I tried a little bit of a different approach to this one, and I hope you guys found it entertaining, and I sure enjoyed trying to edit it for y'all. And again, if there's anything you think I could improve, please let me know. I am open to try and adapt my editing style, my video style, for something that is more enjoyable to watch. And if y'all have any ideas for any videos or episodes you want to see me do, or any builds in this area, comment it. I will see it, and I will consider it and probably respond to you. So with that being said, I hope you guys have an awesome day.